our listeners with a lot of valuable information. So if you're looking to prepare your home for sale, prepare yourself to buy a home, um, or you just want general information. Maybe you're even thinking about purchasing an investment property or selling an investment property because you want to buy a bigger investment property. There are a lot of particulars that you should be aware of so that you can make informed decisions, smart decisions, because when you're talking about homes, properties that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, a 5% mistake could cost you 20 grand at the drop of a hat. Okay, so, and you don't want to do things, you don't want to spend more money than you necessarily need to when you're preparing your home for sale. So if you have any um, thoughts or anything like that, don't be bashful. You can call 401 409 5030. That's after the show. That is my personal uh, mobile number. You can text me there too. Do a quick shout out to my colleague, my friend Deb Houghton, who is also a Remax realtor who just tuned in on Facebook Live. You can listen to us every week right here on WNRI 99.9 FM, 1380 AM. Of course, WNRI.com. You can catch us after the fact on Spotify. Just look for the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. And then you can listen to us and watch us live on Facebook Live. Okay. So the real estate market, it's still strong, folks. I mean, people keep asking me almost with, a sense of glee. So has the market started to crash? Are prices coming down yet? And unfortunately for you, if that's what you're hoping for, that's not the case. Fortunately for homeowners, that's not the case because values are still going up. They're not going up at the crazy rates that we had, um, a year ago, 2 years ago. Single digits, low to middle single digits, but the rates are, excuse me, the rate of equity accumulation or appreciation has been positive. Now we're fortunate in southern New England that we really never went negative. There are certain parts of the country that did go negative in the beginning of the year, the end of last year. Things started to drop off, and there were all of these forecasters, these pundits, these talking heads, as I refer to them, who were saying at the end of 22 that, oh, the market's going to crash, there's going to be a big drop off in prices. And these are like people at Moody's, people at Zillow, people, at big national and international companies. And they've been proven wrong because the markets held steady. Before, there were some communities, some of the largest cities in the country were experiencing a little bit of depreciation. Now, everybody is experiencing increases in value of their homes. And this is in spite of the fact that interest rates are still on the high side compared to where they were. Now, of course, if you remember a year and a half ago, we were looking at 3%, maybe a little lower, 3.5%, 4% towards the middle of last year. And rates now, if 6.5%, 7% is what we're looking at about now. Last month, the month before, we had some drops that it was a little bit lower, but rates are high, but it has not hindered the rate at which people are buying homes. We still only have about a few weeks of housing inventory. That's should be about 6 months of inventory. That means that's how much time it would take for us to sell all of the houses that are currently on the market as of today. It would take a matter of weeks. And that number, there should be enough houses so that would be 6 months. So that can give you an indication of how little inventory we have. I've been in the business for a couple of decades, and I have friends and colleagues who've been in for several decades, and they have never seen the market as tight as it is now, being how few houses there are for people to buy. And we have more buyers every year because as people grow up and become adults and start, new home creation, get married, want to have kids, move out of the basement with mom and dad or grandparents, they're creating new homes. And so we always need new homes, but we haven't been building enough homes for the past 10 years. And I'm talking about in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, nationwide, it's been a challenge. So these are, my friend Deb, she just said, I still see the seller's market is strong. It is. It's definitely a seller's market, and it's going to continue to be a seller's market. Now, this is going to be a little bit challenging for some of my colleagues because, just for perspective, okay, in 2012, we had about 900 change, a little bit under a million realtors in this country. And today, we have 1.6 million realtors in this country. And guess what? All those realtors are trying to chase a smaller number of transactions. So we have more realtors chasing a smaller number of transactions. So that's going to be challenging for a lot of my colleagues because they're not going to be able to get the business done that they need to. Okay, but that's kind of inside baseball talk for the real estate industry. I am fortunate in that tonight I have another super awesome guest who is going to be on the show, and I always try to bring in local smaller businesses, if it's other realtors, if it's home inspectors, attorneys, whoever it is, closing companies like Beacon Title and Escrow, the go-to closing attorney for Joe Luca Real Estate. We also have John Dolbeck and Heath Lafort at Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation. 401-321-4401 is their phone number. And then the best movers in southern New England, G. Metz Moving and Storage, 401-383-6399. George was on last week. We had a lot of valuable, helpful information, just over, general information about moving, but then also about preparing for your move, whether you're buying or selling. It makes a lot of sense to hire a mover, and why not hire the best? G. Metz Moving and Storage. And then, of course, Vern Rainville. He is the public insurance adjuster. Vern is a Northern Rhode Island guy. He was in construction before he did this. He really helps the property owner make sure that there is nothing that's overlooked by the insurance adjuster who most likely works for an insurance company. Vern knows what to look for because as a contractor, he's seen things that were when you open up a wall or whatever it is, he can identify potential problems and then knows how to make sure that it's something that the insurance company would approve. But that's Vern Rainville, public insurance adjuster. He works for the property owner. 484-300-8495. That's 484-300-8495. And now, my special guest, all for you guys this week. Okay, Celeste Benjamin. Hello, Celeste. Welcome to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. How are you?
Hi, Joe. I hope I live up to my introduction. You said an awesome guest. I hope I can be awesome.
I have every confidence. If you, like me, you like to talk, and you just have an abundance of information about the insurance industry and business in general. And I know that you're going to have a lot of information. So I guess to start off with, for anyone who in our listening audience who doesn't know you or your company, why don't you tell them a little bit about you guys and how long you've been around and where you're located, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you, Joe, for having me tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a pleasure to
Great.
be here, so that's much appreciated. My name is Celeste Benjamin, and I own the Benjamin Insurance Agency, LLC. I own it with my lovely daughter, Kira. She's my youngest daughter, and we own it together. We started our insurance business about 18 years ago as a mother-daughter team. We went back to school, actually, because I used to do financial planning, and she did some other things, and we wound up getting our family together to do the insurance. So we opened up our first agency at 125 Eddie Darling Highway in North Smithfield. It's right across the street from the CVS. Mm-hmm. And we had no business. We opened up what we call a scratch agency. And for people that don't know what a scratch agency is a lot of times when someone is starting out in a business, especially with insurance, they'll buy an existing book. Mm-hmm. Someone's retiring, they want to get out of the business, yep. They don't have a family member to pass it down to. Mm-hmm. And that's how they get started, right? So they're already getting started with at least some customers. Sure. We didn't do it that way, and it's rare that people do start a scratch agency. But we bought the building on Eddie Darling Highway, and while we were getting some training, we had to do a little traveling for that, but mm-hmm. we had fun at the same time. It was wonderful having that experience with my youngest daughter. Yep. My husband actually stayed back and held the fort down, and he remodeled the building while
Oh,
we were
wow.
gone. So at least when we had customers to come in, they could come into at least a pretty building.
Right.
Um, Unfortunately, when we opened on January 2nd in 2006, what happened was our furniture wasn't in yet. It was
boy.
back ordered like 3 months. So we
Mhm.
started with the big old computers with the back to them,
Yeah.
2 banquet tables. And now we kind of reminisce about that
Yeah.
because we had a lot of fun
Yep.
doing it. But that's how we started. We do have a second location now. We've had that for a few years. That location is at 72 South Main Street in Bellingham, Massachusetts. It's actually right over the line. Everybody seems to know where the old, because let's face it, we're Woonsocket people, right?
Right.
The old Little General, so you need to do the land
Yes.
thing to know where you're going, and that office is right across the street from there. It's close to Pulaski Boulevard.
Yeah.
But we write both states, all of Massachusetts, and we write all of Rhode Island. We have tons of different products. Not only do we do personal lines insurance, regular home and auto, and I'm hoping we can get some good tidbits in for all those new homeowners that you're going
Yeah.
to be helping,
Yep.
or first-time home buyers. But we also do financial services and life insurance. I mean,
Oh, that's interesting.
we, right, because a lot of people, like when they are buying their first home, it takes mostly everyone today, it takes the 2 incomes. So you
Yeah.
might get a lovely, young couple in front of you, they're 30 years old. It takes both their incomes to get into their new house.
Yep.
If they get life insurance, which is really mortgage protection.
Right.
So if something happened to one, the other person could stay in the house, so Allstate would pay their house off for them. So we have a lot of options. We have pet insurance. We have one-day event insurance. You're throwing a big party and you're gonna have a wedding
Get
on
out
your
of town.
on your front lawn, but people will be dancing and drinking and partying and tripping.
All
and
right. See, this is why I like having smart people on the show, 'cause I never knew about that. I never knew there was such a thing.
Yes, you can get one-day event insurance.
So, folks, we have graduation times coming up. We're going to have 4th of July parties coming up this summer. And so if you're going to have a party, you may want to think, especially if you're going to maybe have a dance floor or you're going to have a tent, you may want to give Celeste a call, because if somebody trips and falls and then they see one of those Rob Levine commercials or something, the heavy hitter.
I mean, everyone has usually liability on their policy, but
Right.
this would be extended liability
Yep.
to cover more,
Yeah.
because there's more of a risk on that kind of a day.
I never knew there was such
Yeah.
a thing. That's so
More fun too, but more of a risk.
Right, right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, all right, so I'm also intrigued that you have like the financial planning component, because I think that's something, that a lot of young people today, you, excuse me, they don't teach any of that in school.
I know.
And that's something that everybody wants to do it, and the toughest thing is the discipline for people. And-
Absolutely. I've talked to a lot of parents, customers that are parents, and they've asked me as favors. My kid's in his second year of college. He spends money like crazy.
Right.
Doesn't really realize now that he's got a credit card that it's all of a sudden over the limit, and he can't make the payments. And what kind of advice can you give to a youngin that's coming into adulthood that might need some wisdom other than their parents, because we
Right.
all know they don't want to listen to
Yes.
their parents,
Right.
right? So I've done many favors like that to we're from the community.
Yeah,
We're born and brought up here.
exactly.
So you are our people. And that's
yeah.
how we got to be, as successful as we are. So fortunately, we have lasted almost 2 decades, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll keep going. But it's because of the people in the Woonsocket and the Woonsocket areas,
Yep.
close by Massachusetts, all the Blackstone Valley area, that have supported us, and we so much appreciate it and have gratitude for that.
Yep.
And we never forget that at any moment of any day.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the good people, we'd be
Yeah.
having our business, our scratch business would be nothing.
Right,
So
right.
they help us grow it, and we like to give back whenever we can.
And folks, regular listeners to the show, they know I'm a big supporter and advocate for local small businesses. I mean, I grew up in a small business family, so of course that's my background. But it makes sense for that very reason, because you care and you'll do extra things. And I want to point out, because I thought about this as I was walking in here and we finished talking earlier, you know, you see these commercials online, and I can't say the name because I'm not sure of it. I don't want to misspeak, but it's like, and I think it's pretty much mostly for car insurance, and it's basically, you know, you call this company, and it's like almost like an app to get cheap car insurance. And I know this is cars, I know it's not homes, but I want to illustrate a point, because when you engage in a business transaction with someone like that, you may be getting the cheapest price, but there's a lot of stuff that you don't know that what you're not getting, because they're not going to tell you what you're not getting. And unfortunately, as a policy holder or owner, I guess, you would not find out until you get into a car accident. And that's why it just, you know, don't be enticed, listeners, don't be enticed by those commercials that you see on TV, you know, to just call this and it's so easy and we're the cheapest. And, you know, I remember a quote when I was a kid. There was, I went to LaSalle, and there was a restaurant across the street, a little sandwich shop, and it said, good food's not cheap, cheap food's not good. And that can be applied to pretty much any business, and in this particular case here, you know, with insurance, you don't want to find out you don't have the right insurance when you need the right insurance.
Well, you also have to think of the moment of truth. So I always call it the moment of truth is when you have that bad accident,
Right.
or maybe your husband died in the accident, or maybe you killed someone else in an accident. You know, insurance isn't all fun and games, that's for
Right.
sure. There's some very stressful and emotional times, even as far as the agents go, which I don't think people always realize that. So when there's a house fire or something like that, and it's devastating. Most of the house fires that we have had in the years that we've been in business, we've been able to go there to try to help the customer. And if you buy insurance online or anything like that, they're not showing up
Yeah.
at your house fire or at that moment of truth. This past few weeks ago, when they had the school vacation, Massachusetts had it 1 week and Rhode Island had it the other week. One of the weeks, poor lady, she was so distraught. She hit a kid on a bike.
Oh, no.
And then the following week in Rhode Island, another person hit a kid on a
Oh, my
bike.
gosh.
And, you know, that's when they want to come in because they're shaking and they want someone to talk to. Like, what's
Yeah.
the next step? What happens? Oh, my God, I didn't mean to hurt them. Of course
Right.
they didn't mean to hurt them.
Yeah.
I mean, myself, I've been driving on 146 or someplace, and it's dark out, maybe raining. I
Yeah.
go by a person, I'm like, oh my God, that was a person. I didn't
didn't
see
even
that
see that.
person
I
till I was
know.
on top of them. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah.
So it can happen to the best of people, and it can
Mhm.
happen to anybody. But when you have that moment of truth, we had a fire not too long ago on an island, in Rhode Island, Prudence Island, and you know, that family had a generational home. Can you imagine if you have 3 or 4 generations in that same
Oh,
home and everything is gone?
Oh, my gosh.
So we try to support
Mhm.
our customers the best we can. Most of our customers wind up being our friends because
Yep.
they've stayed with us for a long time. And I have to say, I think it's human nature
Mhm.
to give the very best you can, whether that's advice or service, you know, staying late, holding their hand if they just hit someone,
Mhm.
or, you know, making them a cup of tea, whatever it is that they need at that time, I think is much better when you know the person.
Mhm.
So I think human nature, if you know the person, I think you're automatically going to give them the best treatment you can.
Right.
If it's someone on the phone and it's a countrywide carrier,
Mhm.
and, you know, poor Joe just had a house fire or hit a kid on a bike, it's, I think, a little bit of a different take. I'm sure they're still very caring
Mhm.
and empathetic and will do the right thing just like we would.
Right.
But I think it's different when you actually know the people.
Now, have you had any situations where there's someone, they call you up, they just had a situation, they were with one, like on a national provider that, like the 1-800 number or whatever, or someone they didn't know, or was it not a good insurance agent, and they didn't have the coverage that they thought they had, and then you're coming in after the fact and they're like, Celeste, please give me the coverage that I need for my house so I don't have this problem again. Has something like that happened before, or
Yes.
or have you heard? I know I tell war stories when I go to national conferences. We all share information and war stories, and I've heard about some situations that colleagues of mine have witnessed. Have you ever heard about anything like that, even if it's in other parts of the country, where people think, yeah, they got this really cheap policy, but the reason it was cheap was because it didn't cover a roof leak or
Well,
whatever.
you want to be educated, that's for
Right.
sure. So, at point of sale, when you're explaining coverages, by the way, every agent should be explaining the coverages to their
Yep.
customer in detail, what coverages what they have. Like if they're doing like to likes, like sometimes someone will come to me and they'll want to quote exactly what they have, so it's apples to apples.
Mhm.
So I will certainly do the apples to apples. So I'll have the papers in front of me, I'll put the apples to apples, show them like to like
Yep.
and what the price is. Are we better, worse, or someplace in between? Then at that point, I also give advice. You know, I see you have only $100,000 liability on your home. You know, have you ever thought of increasing that? You know, I really feel you should be at least at 300 or even better, 500,000.
Yep.
You know, so you would give advice to critique maybe what they have. We always have to remember we also have to work in someone's budget.
Mhm.
So sometimes you want, you know, the platinum everything,
Right.
but your budget says, you know, I'm only at silver.
Champagne taste and a fair budget, right?
So we try to make it personalized for what their need is.
Mhm.
And if they don't have a lot of coverage in a certain area because it's a budget situation,
Yep.
we try to make the best out of what we can give them for the price they have.
Yep.
Or the price they can't afford to pay. But we certainly want to check coverages. The other thing I'd like to say about that too is to make sure you know what the coverages are and
Mhm.
what they mean.
Right.
So a lot of times I have customers that come in and are like, well, what if a tree falls?
Yeah.
What if this? All the what ifs.
Yeah.
And we can certainly answer a lot of the what ifs, probably not every what if,
Right.
because everything's, you know, unique situation.
Mhm.
But those are good questions for the consumer to be asking so they know. Now, once they purchase what they're going to get, they signed and they're all set with their new policy, it really is also the responsibility of the customer, the
Mhm.
policy holder, to when you get your renewal, to look at it.
Yep.
I have so many people that's why, I don't know, I've been with you 6 years and I've never looked at anything.
Mhm.
Well, we look at it, but you should look at it too.
Right.
You know, did you have an addition on your house? You know,
Yep.
did something change? You always had the garage, but now you have a loft on top and it's finished
Mhm.
and you're going to rent it. Oh my
Right.
God. You need
Right.
to call your insurance agent and
Yeah.
let them know, you know, or you might want to increase something. So
Mhm.
you have your dwelling coverage on a home, and then part of that dwelling coverage is outside structures. So
Yeah.
outside structures would be anything that's detached from the home. It can
Mhm.
be a fence, it can be a shed, it can be a gazebo, it can be many things. So let's just say it's a garage, right?
Yep.
And it's a one-car garage. And this year, I don't know, you got a bonus at work and you're making your one-car garage a
Yep.
three-car garage. We need to know that because your other structures might need to be embellished.
Mhm.
Maybe you don't have enough there because at the get-go it was a one-car detached garage.
Yep.
And now it's a big elaborate fancy three-car garage. We want to make sure that we would, you know, make sure that the coverage for that three-car garage has been changed
Mhm.
from the one-car garage. But we wouldn't know if you did that unless you
Right.
called to tell us.
Yep. I just had one of the viewers on Facebook saying we should be supporting local insurance agents. They know where we live and can make sure that we have the correct insurance coverage we need. I agree with you, Joe Luca, that we shouldn't be getting insurance online. Thank you for discussing this important topic.
Well, that's sweet. Thank you
Yes.
very much. But yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And you know, I also agree. It has nothing to do with insurance, but keeping the dollar in the community.
Yeah,
You know, I give it to Joe. Joe gives it back to me. I give it to you.
Local businesses support
Why
the local
not?
ball
That's right.
teams and make donations
We
to
do.
local charities. You know, if you're dealing with a company that's you know from across the country, they don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the reasons why I encourage everyone to use local mortgage lenders. I mean, the sponsor of the show, our sponsors is John Dolbeck at Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation. But there are a lot of other good lenders out there too. North Point Bank, my friend Don Miller, my buddy Joe Baptista at Anchor Mortgage, Freddie Almeida at Navigant Credit Union. We have a lot of local lenders who are just like entrenched in the local community, sponsoring teams, giving money for certain charities, etc. And that's what makes a community vibrant. And so I always try to get everyone to work on and support local businesses. So we were
Great
talking.
idea, Joe.
Thank you. We were talking before the show about a little bit about the real estate market and how it has still remained vibrant and strong, and that house prices are continuing to go up. And one of the things that I was always amazed at is how homeowners, or prospective homeowners, around here, they are unaware, the first-time homeowners, that sometimes they need less for a down payment than they were otherwise aware of. So you don't need to have a 20% deposit. You can have 5%, 10%, 3.5%. In some instances, zero down payment. And then you would just have closing costs. But if you're a veteran, you don't even pay for closing costs. It all gets worked into the loan. Now, the downside of that is the less of a down payment you have, the bigger your monthly payment is going to be to buy the same house. And that can be a challenge because if you're many times first-time home buyers, the budget is tight. And sometimes there are things, insurance, because you have to have insurance. If the house has a mortgage, they're going to require that you have homeowners insurance. And you need to have a savvy insurance agent because they'll give you enough insurance coverage so that you're covered, but not too much so that it disqualifies you, so your DTI doesn't, so you can't afford the mortgage anymore. And I know that that's something you have a lot of experience working with young couples.
We love working with young couples. We
Yeah.
love working with everybody, no
Right.
matter what age, because I'm certainly not a youngin'.
Right.
But it's exciting to me
Yep.
when someone, whether they're young or not, but it's their first time they buy a house. Like, that's very exciting.
Right.
It's just like opening a new business. That's very
Right,
exciting, right?
Yeah.
So I remember my first house, and
Yeah.
it's exciting to those people, but it's also important that they know exactly, what they're getting into, what the
Mhm.
responsibility is, what happens. Okay, I found a house now. I got a great realtor. He's got
Yeah.
me a house. What do I do next?
Mhm.
So the next thing is, you have to make sure that you have insurance in place before you're closing. And the insurance agency, such as myself, would send a binder over to the mortgage people so they can proceed with the closing, and that helps your closing to go smoothly,
Mhm.
that it's already in place ahead of time.
And I want to jump in here because
Yeah.
it's so important when you need to have that binder, that you have the binder. And that's why it's also very important to work with a local insurance agent, because you can call up, hey Celeste, can you shoot that over to me? We move the closing up from next week till tomorrow, and it's not a big deal. If you're trying to, deal with Acme Insurance from East Chippewa, you're going to get voicemail and you're not going to get anyone on the phone. And I've
Well, we definitely know how to
experienced
scramble if you
Yeah.
got to scramble. And
Yeah.
sometimes that happens, believe me.
Yeah.
I've had people that either the closing date changes, which that's fine. We can work with that.
Yeah.
But someone will tell me my closing's tomorrow and I have nothing in place yet. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's stop everything and help her right now, or this
Right.
person right now, because they need the attention right now.
Right.
For this closing to go smoothly, they should have that in place, so they can close on the home.
Now, you made me I don't know why this popped into my head, but the term potential liability, someone said to me once that insurance companies, they look for a potential liability, and they were pointing out how at my house there was a tree that was an otherwise healthy tree, but it was leaning over the driveway towards the house, and he's like, God forbid something happens and it falls on your mother-in-law's car when she comes to see, something like that. And I was like, oh, all right, so I had the tree cut down. But are there things that, as a potential home buyer or even an existing homeowner, that people should look out for that they may not know?
Certainly, of course. Well, the first thing, which I think most people would know, because I believe it would be common sense, is maintain your home.
Yeah.
You can't just keep letting it deteriorate and deteriorate. And I
exactly.
understand sometimes people get an illness or,
Yep.
they lose their income, and there's certain situations where, that does happen. But if you can possibly maintain your home, you should be maintaining your home.
Yep.
For instance, I'll give you a little story. So let's say, you've been looking at that water heater and you can see the bottom's kind of rusted out, but you've ignored it a little bit more, and 5 more months go by and it's a little more rusty, and you still ignore it, and in your heart that that water heater is 12 years old,
Right.
and its lifespan is already beyond, beyond the beyond.
Yeah.
And you go to the Cape for the weekend, right?
Yeah.
That's when it's going to happen. You come home, it busted out, you happen to have a semi-finished basement, so the bathroom or the couch down there is now, the rug is wrecked
Yep.
from the water. So insurance would not cover, in any carrier, would not cover the water heater, right? That was
Okay.
wear and tear.
Yep.
You're supposed to maintain your things.
Mhm.
All right, because everyone would just make everything wear and tear, and
Right.
there would be no insurance companies. But what it would cover the damage that it caused.
Okay.
So it wouldn't replace the water heater, but the rug and the couch and the bathroom or the vanity or whatever got damaged in
Okay.
that would be covered by the insurance
Good to know.
company. So people don't realize that. The tree situation that you talked about, the million tree questions.
Yeah.
So, so you said your scenario was a tree was coming over the fence and leaning over someone's car, and it fell onto the car. Well, that would be the person that owns that car, that claim would go through their auto insurance.
Oh.
That's how that
okay.
would work. Now,
But if it fell on
if-
my mother-in-law.
oh,
No, I'm just saying hypothetically, if someone were walking across the driveway and a tree hit them, then that would be on the homeowner's policy.
and that would go under the liability,
Yeah.
right?
Gotcha.
But let's say the neighbor's tree falls on your shed.
Okay.
Okay, it's gonna go under your homeowners.
Yep.
Even though, because people say, well, it was my neighbor's tree, and I've told them 3 or 4 times that
Yeah.
that tree is gonna go. If the tree limbs are coming over onto your property, you have the right to trim whatever is on your property. You can't go and cut down their tree.
Right.
But if you have big branches or a few limbs that are coming over onto, say, your garage, and they're causing moss on the top of your garage, which is
Yep.
going to make your roof rot sooner, you certainly can get rid of those branches or those limbs.
Okay.
If my tree in my house, in my yard, falls on my neighbor's house, right?
Yep.
Where does the claim go? If my tree falls on my neighbor's house,
Would their insurance
it goes
go-
on the neighbor's house insurance.
Yep. And then they would go after your insurance company, or?
No,
Oh,
no,
no.
no,
Oh.
no, it fell onto their house,
Okay.
and it goes under their homeowners.
Something
Yeah.
else I learned tonight. Oh my
Yeah.
God, 40 minutes into the show and I've already
Yeah.
learned 2 things. That's great.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay,
So
interesting.
trim your trees, guys.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, one of the things I talk about is as part of like maintaining your house, at least like just once a week, go in the yard, walk around the house, look at the trees near the house, the shrubs, make sure the shrubs aren't getting too close to the foundation or the house, because you're gonna have moisture in there. If they get too big, you're gonna have critters living over there. You want to just pay attention, look for things that have changed in your yard since the last time you were walking around your yard. Oh,
Or
maybe there's a gutter,
The attic.
a downspout that came loose or something like that. Not even water going down behind your siding. That's a problem. And so the attic. Okay, this is something else. A lot of times.
I've lived here 10 years, I've never been in my attic.
Yeah.
Well, take a peek once in a while, you never know what's up,
Yeah.
going on up there.
Yeah, guilty as charged. Because I've got this little small attic, and I have not stuck my head up there since Rise insulated it. But because that's why that's also an issue, is because mold and I didn't know this until I got into the business. You need air movement in your attic, and if you don't have air movement, you're going to have certain times of the year you'll have condensation, and moisture will condense, and then moisture can create mold. And that's usually discovered when you put your house on the market and you receive a great offer or a lousy offer, and the
Or you
home
get that
inspector.
great home inspector out there,
Right,
and he takes a
exactly.
look and says,
And
look,
says, oh, we've got
this
mold in
needs
the
to be
attic.
remediated.
Or actually, they would say we have microbial growth in the attic, which may be mold. In which case, the seller has to have it treated. Usually they just have it treated; they don't have it tested. They just assume the worst.
It's kind of like the radon thing.
Yeah.
If you
yeah.
have radon, then
Yeah, just get it fixed, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's something, folks. You want to make sure your attic has adequate ventilation. Now, in the old days, everybody had gable vents, or not everybody. Most houses had gable vents, and now we have ridge vents. Those are, you know, in the past 20 years or so, 25 years, people have been, when they replace their roofs, they put a ridge vent on, which essentially is kind of they chop off the top peak of the roof and then put a cap back on. So what that does is that it lets the hot air escape the roof, but it has to suck the air in from the bottom of the roof near the eave. So you've got to have vents down there so the air can go up and circulate. As long as it's continually moving, you won't create mold. But it's important to pay attention and remember that, because the three biggest enemies to any home are water, water, and water, whether it's liquid, solid, or gas, like a mold or ice or just water flowing in from your downspouts. Now, excuse me. Is there a difference from an insurance policy perspective whether the water damage comes up from the ground or comes down from the roof, or?
Yeah, so those can be challenging questions for.
'Cause I first encountered this during those big floods we had in, what was it, 2010 or 2012? Yeah.
So water seepage is something that's never covered. There are other types of things that, you know, you can get for that, but when you buy a homeowner's policy, think when you look at your coverages, the first coverage is the dwelling coverage.
Yeah.
So they're covering the dwelling. They're not covering the ground
Okay.
or water seepage from the ground, that type of thing. And besides that type of water thing, you always have to, a claim has to be sudden and accidental. Okay, so if you have something that's been happening over time,
Right.
like this has been happening for 4 years, but I
Yeah.
didn't really notice it, or I didn't do anything about it, or whatever, and you try to call in a claim has to be sudden and accidental. So for instance, I had a person that lived over by the beef barn, the old
Yep.
beef barn,
Right.
and wonderful people. She had like a porch, and the porch had some moss on it, and it rotted the roof from the porch. Would that be a covered peril? No,
No,
because they should have maintained their home and not had the moss on there, but it didn't happen suddenly. It wasn't sudden and accidental. It was deteriorating over time. Now, one of the things I learned when I was much younger, which I was like, wow, and I'll give that as an example because it wowed me at the time. So it was over here not too far from the bocce club, and it was
Yep.
a two-family home, a nice elderly lady on the first floor. She rented the second floor. It was a very young man on the second floor renting. For some reason, he started his tub and he ran to Dunkin' to get a coffee and maybe forgot he started the tub. And the tub overflowed, all big claim, all
Yeah.
through the floors, the ceiling, down to the first floor.
Gosh.
You know, the poor old woman on the
Yeah.
first floor. So it took its toll, and I was new in the business at the time. This is when I first started out, and I thought I better call and find out about that, because I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, would that be covered? I'm not sure if that would be covered. And it was sudden and accidental,
Yep.
so it was covered. And my
Okay.
first thought was, oh, we pay for stupidity, because I was young at the time.
Right.
But that is true. That was a covered claim.
Wow.
So it's very claims and insurance in general, even life insurance, are very interesting.
Yeah.
To hear all the things that you've learned and stories you could tell, but very interesting.
So, okay, so you've got me thinking. So I mentioned, microbial growth, mold before. So if someone has, I guess question one, is mold excluded carte blanche from homeowners policies,
So
or does it depend?
it depends.
Okay.
So if someone is looking for that, they really need to question about that.
Yep.
Because a lot of things aren't covered when it comes to mold and fungi.
Because I would think if it.
Because a lot of that's over time.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And that falls into that not sudden and accidental category. Some policies do give some coverages for
Okay.
some of it, but that is a question that the consumer would want to ask.
Yep.
and to see if that's something that was necessary for them.
So folks, if you're listening, pay attention. If you aren't sure, call your insurance agent. And if somebody has an insurance policy, they're not a client or customer of yours, but they don't know how to read their policy, would you be willing to help them? I mean, just like to see if you could maybe, listen, this is what it says and you really should have this, or kind of, do insurance agents do that? Do they critique it, or is that something that's
So
not?
I'm always willing to look at someone else's policy,
Yep.
and give my 2 cents, you
Okay.
know, and I'm sure other agents in the area would do the same.
Mhm.
Luckily, we have a lot of agents in the area with different companies, and, you know, they're all good people too.
Okay.
But we would definitely look at that and we would try to pull it apart for them. A lot of times we go to our own policy jackets because it's something that seems odd, and it's, you know, what's included, what's excluded. This is all excluded except this is included, and,
Right.
you know, unless you're you know, have 2 master's degrees and you're a
Right.
lawyer,
Yeah.
you might not even be able to decipher it.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we'll have to pick apart our policy jacket or someone else's policy jacket, to let them know exactly what they have that's covered. They certainly should go to their agent for any questions and
Yep.
not a different agent, only because that agent is
Okay.
getting paid on that policy.
Gotcha.
So let them earn their work,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
But if you want a second set of eyes, there's nothing wrong with that. It's
Yep.
sometimes a very good thing to do. It's just like getting a second doctor's opinion,
Mhm.
right? Because a lot of times there's gray areas. You know, what we think is good, someone else might not think is so good, right? There's
Right.
some gray areas for certain things.
Okay.
You know, I'm always big on the liability side. I'm always telling people that I'd like to see higher liability.
Right. Right.
Only because I know, like you
Everybody's so
said, all the
litigious.
billboards and everything
Yeah.
else, you know, call us before you call
Yeah.
your insurance and all of those things.
Yeah.
And landlords, they're the number one people in the country, statistically wise, that get sued the most.
Wow.
So you want to make sure that you have the right coverages for your investment property. You know, if you're a landlord, you might want to encourage your tenants to have a renter's policy,
Yep.
so they have some coverage for themselves. Because a renter's policy would be like in your apartment, if you rent and you tip your apartment upside down, think of everything that would fall.
Yeah.
That's what you would have insured with your renter's policy.
Okay.
They're very inexpensive.
Yep.
They're somewhere around $100 a year, give or take a little bit, depending if you have a multi-policy discount with it or not. And it gives you a ton of coverages. Like, you
Oh,
get the
that's good.
biggest bang for your buck out of
Yeah.
a renter's policy. If you if the lady upstairs had a kitchen fire and now downstairs where you rent is full of soot and smoke and some water damage and you can't live there,
Right.
right? And you have to go, say, to a hotel. Can you even get a hotel for $100 a night,
Oh, right.
right?
Yeah.
And that would be a whole year's premium.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, they put you up in a hotel, they pay extra for your meals.
Oh my
It
gosh.
has
that's- yeah, I
tons
never
of
thought about that.
coverages.
I never thought of that.
And
Yeah.
again, you have the whole team, like in our case, the whole Allstate team for their legal defense. So if
Yeah.
someone's trying to sue you, you have that legal defense on that policy also.
Wow. Okay.
So, you know, if people are renting, they should still, you know,
I don't
have
know, Celeste, that's
renter's
the
insurance.
third thing I've learned tonight. I think you're going to get the prize. I don't think I've learned three things in 50 minutes from a guest.
Nice.
Very good. That's good.
Nice.
So now, question. So let's say I have a client, they bought their house right before COVID started. House values went up 18%, 20%, then 10%, and then last year 5%. So their house is worth 35% more than when they bought it.
Mm-hmm.
Should they revisit their homeowner's policy?
So, once a year, everyone should revisit their homeowner's policy. But, in that case, there is a difference. So people will call me and say, my policy went up, can you tell me why? And we explain why, and then we try to help to see what we can do to get that pricing back down for them. But what we look at is not fair market value. So fair market value is someone like
Right.
you. I'm gonna sell my house.
Yep.
What can I get for it? Well, what you can get for it today is gonna be different than 2 months from now and
Yep.
gonna be different from 2 years ago. So that's fair market value.
Okay.
So that is different than the value for an insurance. Or people call and say, but the tax assessor assessed it at ABC. So it's not about what it's assessed for with your taxes. It's not about what you could get for your house or not get for your house, depending what the market's doing with selling and buying homes. It's about replacing your house. So let's just say we had a fire, okay? My carriers are gonna go in and they're gonna first board up the house, right?
Oh, okay, so they do
Then
that.
they're gonna
Okay.
that's all included in your policy.
Okay.
Then they're gonna go in, I don't know, several days later after the fire chief does what he's gotta do, and they're gonna demolish it. Then they have to take all that hazarded waste and they have to bring it to usually some other state.
Yep.
That can be $60,000-$70,000 just to remove the
Holy
hazarded
cow.
waste, because it's hazarded waste, right? That's gonna go somewhere.
I didn't think about that.
Then they're gonna rebuild your house like to like. If
Yep.
you had Formica, you're getting Formica. If you had granite, you're getting granite.
Yep.
And this, of course, is with a replacement policy.
Mhm.
So you get like to like, right? So that's what you're gonna look at. You also, while that's happening and they're rebuilding your home for you, they're gonna put you up either in another residence or a hotel, depending on
Okay.
what your situation is, if it's a shorter term or a larger term.
Yep.
I've seen them many times rent a single-family home and furnish it for those people.
Oh, wow.
So you get it's called loss of use.
Yep.
So that's on your policy also, is loss of use. So if you have to be relocated because of, a sad tragedy like that, you would have the means to do it.
Okay.
So that is also part of your policy. Some policies with some carriers will say a certain dollar amount,
Yep.
and others will say up to 12 months.
Okay.
I forget
Now-
what was the question now, Joe.
No, you answered it. That was great. But you used the term a replacement policy.
Mm-hmm.
What's not? What is the other thing? If it's not a replacement policy, what is it?
It would be like a select value.
Okay.
So what that means is, if you have a mortgage, it still has to cover the mortgage, because the
Okay.
mortgage people, they
Yep.
want their money if something happens, and you can't blame them. You don't
Mhm.
really own the house yet, you own it with them. But you can sometimes, let's say you only have to rebuild your house, let's just throw some crazy numbers out there, is 400,000, but
Mhm.
you only have 200,000 for your dwelling coverage because you have a select value and that's what you wanted, because that's all you owe the bank.
Mhm.
You can get a policy like that. Do I recommend them? Not most of the time.
Mhm.
There are certain circumstances where I think it works out for the people.
Mhm.
In general, most of the time, my answer would be, don't sell that type of policy. That's a personal opinion.
Yeah.
But let's say I have a couple coming to me, they're barely making ends meet staying in their home,
Mhm.
okay? Their home may even be paid for, but they
Mhm.
certainly still want to have some insurance on it. And the couple is, 84 and 86 years old.
Yep.
Okay? I would say to them, I know you have a select value, you don't have replacement, but in
Mhm.
reality, if something happened to your house and it burned down, would you rebuild? Or would you just kind of take the money you would get and run and
Right.
sell the land, because you still have the land you owned,
Yeah.
and go into assisted living or someplace else? Because at that stage of the game, you may feel differently about replacing your home.
Yep.
So those are all good questions to be, asking those customers.
Right. Good to know. That's really.
You really need to do a good interview.
Yeah.
You need to ask them about their home, pull the property card, see what the city has
Mhm.
listed, and you can look at all of those things. Or if it is a new house, look at the MLS listing and pull the property card and talk to the customer, so you can make sure you're getting the accurate information.
Yep.
And that's important, to be accurate.
Wow, my mind is spinning. That's really interesting how that works. Now, what about, I just thought about this, at the other end of the spectrum, if someone we have some folks listening who live in mobile homes, and they live in a mobile home park.
Mhm.
How does mobile home insurance differ from a conventional home? Is it more like car insurance because it's a movable item, or how does that work?
Well, a lot of them are stationary.
Yeah.
A lot of mobile homes, people live like in a mobile home park and they
Right.
don't move them.
Yep.
So we do mobile homes, we do manufactured homes, we do all different types of insurance. It just depends on, what the need is. But yes, it is different and it would be insured differently than a 3,000 square foot home.
Right, right.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I know the lenders, or some lenders, or most lenders don't do loans. for mobile homes.
Yep, sometimes you have to pay
very
cash.
specialty
Yes.
product or pay cash, yeah.
Mhm.
But what I find interesting about mobile homes is it is like a car as far as depreciation. Holy smokes. You know, they can drop a lot in value.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, usually they're not super huge, so you
Yeah.
can kind of remodel them and
Right, right.
versus a 3 or 2,000 square foot home.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. So, folks, I just want to say again, we are our special guest. We're blessed with Celeste Benjamin from Benjamin Insurance Agency. We've been talking for, believe it or not, almost an hour, and you know, we've got a lot of valuable information that we've shared. If you have any questions about insurance, homeowners insurance, umbrella policies, auto insurance, reach out to Celeste. The best number to call
Yeah,
is...
so you can call us at either agency, and all of our phones roll back to both agencies. So if someone is busy in North Smithfield, the phone call is going to roll to Bellingham because we never want a customer to wait or be on hold if not necessary, so we can answer their questions. But you certainly can call us at 401-765-5000. That is
Nice and
the
easy.
phone number for the North Smithfield agency. And for Bellingham, it's actually a 401 number. There's a story to that. There's a 401 number there. It's 401-767-2061. And we welcome all calls, all questions, but better yet, if you want to stop in, we'd love to meet you.
Ah, there you
So
go.
this way we can start a relationship, and
Yep.
I mean, I've been invited to christenings and weddings,
Oh,
you
my
name
goodness.
it. But that's what it's all about. It's
Yep.
about our family servicing your family and
Yep.
traveling through life with you with the ups and the downs.
Great.
Yeah.
So, folks, thank you very much for coming up to the end of this show. Your humble host, Joe Luca from Remax in North Providence. I want to thank you for tuning in on Facebook or on WNRI.com or 99.9 FM. Thank you very much. Next up, we have the Old Time Preaching Ministry. My buddy Rick Mernier is going to do some great Bible preaching that will be coming up, and he'll be on in just a few minutes right after 6 o'clock. And we will be back next week. I have another very special guest who I think you guys are going to really be interested in. So mark your calendar next Tuesday, 6 o'clock for the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. I will be back at that time. And until then, if you have any questions, 401-409-5030. I'll answer any questions that you have. Take care and have a great week. Bye-bye. Hey, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in on Facebook. Bye-bye.
This